Great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and hopefully a couple of the members will join us. So I'm going to go ahead and call to order this inaugural meeting of the Assembly Quality Municipal Services / Ethics and Elections Committee. We are noticed today, Wednesday, August 28th, from 12 noon to 1 p.m. here at City Hall, room 155. Let's go ahead and start with introductions. Zach Johnson. Felix Rivera. I will note for the record that Vice Chair of the Committee, Constant, is excused. Let's go ahead and introduce our other folks who are here, or on the table.
Jonathan Akers, Deputy Clerk.
William Northrup, Elections Administrator.
And we're also joined by
Dean Gates, Assembly Council. Matthew Hurt, Legislative Council.
Great. All right. So then I'm going to go ahead and move on to new business. First, start with the introduction of the committee. So just a little bit of history of the committee. Early in 2023, there was a discussion around committees, and in particular, part of that discussion had to do with finding a place for education and the Assembly's discussion on education, our role in education, etc., to have a home in a committee or possibly creating a committee to discuss education, so a standalone Assembly Committee on Education or something like that. Before I continue, just want to know, we've been joined by Member Raleigh. There were questions raised on that particular idea of why we would go in that route, what would we be discussing in this kind of committee, and in the end, nothing happened in that discussion. A few months later, there was a discussion on where departments like the library and Parks and Recreation belong, focusing in on Parks and Recreation. The only time that we ever have Parks and Recreation at a committee meeting is in the Housing and Homelessness Committee meeting, where they are talking about homelessness and their work there. We never have them in a committee talking about parks and recreation. So that idea of where do some of these committees, or departments, which residents rely on for a quality of life in a municipality, where does that live? Where does that relationship live with the Assembly in terms of a formal committee structure? At that time, as we were discussing that, education was brought back into the mix, and after looking at the 2023 priorities and seeing quality of life as one of the pillars in our priorities, but really no committee that encapsulates that idea of quality of life, I proposed the idea at that point of creating a new quality of life committee that would encapsulate Parks and Rec, the library, education, and whatever other kind of discussions that we might want to have in that possible new committee. A few months after that discussion, the idea was fine-tuned to the Quality Municipal Services / Ethics and Elections Committee. And I'm just going to briefly read through the committee description, which is on the committee website. The Quality Municipal Services Committee provides oversight for those departments which all residents rely on for a great quality of life in the municipality, such as the Library Department and Parks and Recreation. This committee will explore issues like recruitment and retention to ensure municipal services are delivered at the level residents expect. Lastly, the committee reviews both the Ethics Code and the Elections Code for clarity and recommends changes in coordination with the Board of Ethics, the Election Commission, the Office of the Municipal Clerk, and the general public. So there, I think in reading that committee, you can see three distinct ideas, which I hope that we'll talk about a little bit more in item D on our agenda, discussion on committee vision and goals. But I think that's a good starting point for that discussion. I'll go ahead and just pause there briefly and see if any members have any thoughts or comments. I will note that we do have school board member Bellamy on the phone. Thank you for joining us. No? Okay, so then moving on to introduction of departments. So this is a list of departments that were put together by Assembly leadership in the clerk's office. And generally, I do agree with these departments as those which this committee will have a regular relationship with. So those departments include the municipal clerk, human resources, purchasing, information technology, risk management, safety. I assume that safety is encapsulated in risk management, but if not, someone please correct me. GIS, I assume that GIS is encapsulated in IT, but if not, someone correct me. Parks and Rec, including Chiliakini River Parks, the library, education, the Equal Rights Commission, the Office of Equity and Justice, and the Office of Equal Opportunity. Although, as I understand, the Office of Equal Opportunity is within the Office of Equity and Justice. But those are the different departments that this particular committee will have a relationship with. It's a somewhat of a lengthy list, right? And I should say the education is not a department, that's a separate institution that we have a relationship with. And I appreciate school member Bellamy being here. So those are the departments. I wanted to give an opportunity for any of the departments that came today to just introduce yourselves. So I see that there are a couple of folks here. I think we have someone from the library here and then someone from IT here. So if you all want to come up. Oh, and I obviously missed a third.
Oh, so I'm with risk management.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great, yeah, if you all want to introduce yourself and just a little bit about what your department does. I think we're fairly familiar with your departments, but what your department does. And then I guess if you've thought about it, I am, just for the members, I am hoping to have a offline meeting with all of the various departments just to talk with them about this committee and what they hope to get out of this committee. But if you have any sort of initial thoughts about some of the things that you hope to get out of this committee, we'd love to hear that. So we'll go ahead and start with the three folks we have here, and then school board member Bellamy, I'm not sure if you're on our phone line, but I'll make sure that you can get unmuted so we can hear from you as well.
Through the chair, I am Elizabeth Nicolai, and I am the acting director of the Anchorage Public Library. And the library provides information resources to all citizens of the municipality. Those include books, as is traditional, but also ebooks, online databases, and a large number of things. We very much encourage all of you to come check out. Specifically, starting September 1st is National Library Card Sign-Up Month, and if you have never had a library card and sign up during September, you will get a free roll of Anchorage Public Library duct tape. Because we like to say that with a library card and your duct tape, you can solve 99% of life's problems. So we are here for quality of life. We do believe includes an informed electorate, whether that's a child who needs a picture book on their reading journey, an adult who has just received a diagnosis and needs some reliable health information, internet access. We are here for all of that. We are excited to have a chance to share with the Assembly and through this committee, the public, what we are doing in the ways in which we can serve, in the ways that resources can be made available.
Great, thank you so much.
Good morning or good afternoon already. My name is Philip Rice. I'm the acting IT director at this time. And what IT, like the name says, we provide a lot of technology for our the department, helping them, and providing the services that people need to rely on, including communication, network, application services, SAP, which we are all familiar with, and all kinds of different things. And whenever we can help, we do it, and that's kind of what we do.
Great, thank you.
Good morning or afternoon. I'm Jim Johnson. I'm risk manager. So division of the municipality manager, and I believe there's a separate safety manager. They, for employee safety, they deal with those things outside of our department. We would, of course, look at those in an employee realm from a perspective of providing workers' compensation coverage to the employees, making sure we're in line there and deal with that. The other piece that we cover would be the insurance for the municipality. We deal with the brokers for procured excess coverages, and then all the other lines of insurance that need to fill in the different gaps that go with that. To address liability claims, folks may file against the municipality. And work with council on those. As far as involvement with the citizenry, we're fairly limited in that regard. But we do deal with the employees daily. We have several staff members dealing with the workers' compensation claims. So that's
Great, thank you so much. And then hopefully we can hear from school board member Margot Bellamy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I was wondering. Anyway, I apologize for not being in person today, but I'm really intrigued by the committee. And anyway, I'm representing the Anchorage School Board. Actually, the board hasn't discussed this opportunity yet, but I got the invite and I showed up. And just all I want to say is basically, education is at the heart, is at the core of communities. Communities that are strong and vibrant really do have, and it's not just my opinion, I think the facts will bear out that communities that have a strong, solid education system from pre-K all the way to college are really strengthened. And so that's why I am really excited about this. But the Anchorage School District, we deliver education to over 43,000 students every single day. We employ over 5,000 employees. And so when I think of quality of life, it's yes, it's in our future. It's today with the kids that we are hoping and knowing will grow up to be leaders in our community. But it's also sustaining families and improving the trajectory of success and excellence for our kids and for the families that care for our kids, as well as our employees. So I'll just stop there. I'm glad education is in the mix, and I look forward to working in whatever capacity is appropriate for me to do so. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you so much. I will note for the record that we've been joined by Member Salt on the phone. Thank you, Member Salt. We're not really prepared to have substantive discussions in this inaugural committee meeting with any of the various departments and the school district. But if there's anything, since you're here, that you want to raise or flag to the committee, I'll give you that opportunity. But otherwise, I look forward to having more substantive conversations in the future. Great. So then next, moving on, we have an elections briefing. So we, as I understand it, are going to have a Democracy Live presentation. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to our elections administrator, William Northrop, to introduce our presenter.
Great, thank you. So yes, my name is William Northrop. I am the elections administrator for the municipality. So I have with me today Brian Finley from Democracy Live here to do a brief presentation about Democracy Live and how it works. And the reason that I have him here today is basically there's a twofold reason. First, we allow for vote by email as one of our options for individual voters who are typically away on vacation during election season. So they still want to vote, and that's one of the ways we allow them to vote. We have seen an increase in the number of voters who would like to utilize the vote by email option. and that's been a steady increase since 2019. 2019, we had about 178 voters who utilized this program. And this past election, for the regular, we had 257, and for the runoff, we had 478. One of the issues that we constantly hear from folks who use vote by email is that it's not really voting, I want to say electronically, because they can't vote the ballot on email. They have to print it out, they have to sign, and not everyone has access to a printer when they're away. Some people are on cruise ships, others are overseas, so they just don't have the ability to print off these ballots. And then the other more concerning numbers are the individuals who are overseas and military. This past election, regular election, we mailed out 944 ballot packages to overseas military folks. We received 116 of those back. For the runoff, we mailed out 965 and only received 90 back. So we have been looking into various options, and the elections team thinks that Democracy Live is a great platform to increase those numbers, not only for people who are on vacation wanting to actually vote in an easy way, but also for our overseas military. So with that said, I will turn it over to Brian to give his presentation.
Terrific, thank you, William. I'm going to share my screen here if that's okay with the members of the committee and the council. It's a great honor to be here today. Go ahead and try to share my screen. There you go, and maybe one we can, okay, it's not sharing right now. Let's go ahead and do this. Try one more time.
Did we give it permission to share?
Okay, well, can you confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, terrific. And how about now? You able to see it?
Yep, still able to see the screen.
Okay. So do you see the Democracy Live screen, the PowerPoint? The nation's leader?
We do see welcome voters, accessible absentee ballot, all the boxes, but I don't see anything else.
Okay, that's fine. Well, my name is Brian Finney, and I'm actually a neighbor to your south there, down in Seattle, Washington. Even though today I'm coming in from a Courtyard Hotel in Columbus, and the reason I'm not here in Ohio is Democracy Live supports elections in 34 states around the United States. About 2,500 jurisdictions use this balloting portal that William just briefly mentioned that we'll describe and do a brief demonstration for here today. The reason why Democracy Live started back in 2008 was down in Washington State at the time, in the mid-2000s, went to 100% vote-by-mail elections system. And back then, we started working with the state of Washington to make sure that there was an option, because if you take away the polling places, you also have to take away the accessible voting machines. And what the state of Washington wanted to do is to make sure that all voters, regardless of disabilities, had equal access to an absentee ballot. And so we started working with the University of Washington Center for Technology and Disabilities, and we created this balloting portal. We worked very closely with Amazon Web Services, AWS, to create a balloting portal that would allow for voters to be able to access their ballot no matter where they are in the world. That includes, as William just mentioned, voters who are both, they have a disability, so if they're blind, they can't really see the ballot, they probably don't have a printer. Voters that are on palsy or paralysis, they can't hold a pen because of a disability, or they're serving abroad, or they're living abroad. So if they're in a submarine or a foxhole, or traveling, as we've had voters in 140 plus countries. Every continent had voters that use this portal. The system itself is designed to make sure that you have a secure manner to make sure that all of your voters in Anchorage who are eligible to vote have access to this,
I'm sorry.
no matter where they are,
Can't hear
in
very
either geography or disabilities. And so that's the essence of this
Okay.
technology. And I want to be efficient with your time, so what I think I might do is walk you through what the portal could look like. But do keep in mind that this technology has been deployed in over 5,000 elections. Nearly 20 million voters have had access to it over the last 15 years. The system has been selected by the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. State Department. As I mentioned earlier, it's been deployed across 2,500 jurisdictions over the last 15 years. So it's the most deployed technology of its kind in the country. And I can answer any questions that you might have from a security standpoint. But really, this is the balance between access to the ballot plus heightened security. And I'll touch upon security quickly, and then we'll get into the demonstration itself. But the reason why so many states have recently gone with this portal is because a federal law requires electronic ballot delivery to our military and overseas voters. And traditionally, how most jurisdictions and states comply with that federal law to make sure that our men and women serving abroad have access to the ballot is they're using an email tool, which means that those voters have to click on an attachment and open up that ballot and then print it and then save it and then attach it again and send it back. Well, in this era that we find ourselves in, especially in 2024, with so much concern, the doubt, the distrust in elections and elections integrity, we want to ensure that all best practices for cybersecurity are being met. And if you think about what this system is and then what you have up in Anchorage, which is really unique, is the ability for voters to vote electronically by email. However, the cybersecurity best practices, I think we're all told, right? Be careful about clicking on those attachments, right? Don't click on that attachment. There could be a virus on there or something. And of course, we send out attachments. And so what we're trying to do is heighten the level of security around the transmission of these ballots. And whether it's an email or a portal, these are ballots going over the internet. And so it's really, really critical that we do everything we can to make sure that these ballots are fully secured at the highest level of security. And again, that's why we work with AWS, which has been recently selected by the National Security Agency, been approved by the CIA and the FBI and the Department of Defense and Homeland Security to store some of the nation's most critical and classified documents. So with that, I'm going to walk you through what this tool could look like. Again, what this is really attempting to do is expand access to make sure that all voters, regardless of disabilities, have access to the ballot, to make sure that voters, regardless of where they are geographically, have access to the ballot, but also to have a security upgrade. And I can speak about why some of this has been funded by the Department of Defense through security. But for now, if you bear with me, I'll just go ahead and I'll walk you through briefly what the tool can look like. And again, it's something that we're doing all over the country. We go live, military and overseas voters go live in the election in about 3 weeks, actually. And we're doing that in over 2,000 jurisdictions using this tool. So what would happen? So today, and William can of course share with you in more detail how it works today, but it sounds like up in Anchorage, voters have the ability to get a ballot electronically through an email. So this is similar to that in that the voters who request a ballot electronically would receive a link. But instead of clicking on an attachment to that ballot and having to open up an attachment, and that's what we're trying to avoid from the cybersecurity standpoint, a voter gets a link and the message may be something like, "Thank you for applying for your electronic ballot. Your ballot is now available. Please click here." And I would take them back to this secure portal that we're showing you here. Again, the same AWS environment that's been all approved by most of the critical security agencies in the country. Voters would put in, again, for credentialing purposes, put in a PIN number. So first, last, date of birth, a PIN number would then bring their ballot up. And at this point, the voter is able to navigate through the ballot independently and privately. And I say that because if you are blind, you can hear everything that's on the ballot. If you have paralysis or palsy or Parkinson's, you can use whatever navigation tools and technologies, assistive devices that you have at home. If you're a voter with disabilities, you can go to Amazon and shop. You can go to Facebook and socialize because those sites are built for accessibility. This site is the exact same thing. You can use whatever you have at home to navigate through the computer to navigate now through your ballot. And so what you're seeing here is me marking my ballot. As I go through the process here, I deselect and put in, write in. And of course, we all know, William, that this elections director position for you is just a stepping stone to the city waste director. So we're going to put your name in here for city waste director. And what we have here is the ability to mark your ballot, go through the ballot, review your ballot, making sure that it's who you want to vote for. If you wanted to go back and make a change, you certainly could. Who doesn't want to vote for Golly? And then as you go through the ballot here, you can once more review your ballot. And then at this point, because I believe, actually I'm going to stop there and ask William. William, in Anchorage, I think I know the answer to this, but the voters, when they vote an absentee or vote by mail ballot, they have to sign their name. Is that correct?
Correct. So when a voter comes to us and requests either a vote by email ballot, a vote by fax ballot, or even a temporary address ballot, they have to fill out a form. They have to provide us with their verifiers of either their date of birth, voter ID, or last four of their social, and then they have to sign. And that's how we get this process started, and that would be the same if we were to implement this as well. So yes, they do have to sign and provide us some information.
And then when they fill out their absentee ballot, they mail it back to you or email it back to you. There's the form that they sign there as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the same workflow that we're going to show you here. The only difference is that instead of doing it with a wet signature on a kitchen table somewhere, you can do it right from your device. And one thing you're going to be concerned about is that it doesn't match the signature that you have in file. And I say that because that was my concern, and it's in every elections official's first question is like, oh, is that really going to match if I'm signing my name on a screen? And I was a little bit hesitant to do this because I run the company, I'm president of Democracy Live, and I didn't want to do something that wasn't going to work. Well, we were convinced to do it actually after a pilot back in 2019 by the nation's largest 100% vote by mail jurisdiction, which happens to be King County, which is down in Seattle. And it was the King County elections director who did this as a pilot back then, this was 5 years ago. And she said that not only does the on-screen signature match what you have on your file, meaning that when the signatures come back in, that the signatures get matched up, but it matches at an even higher rate than the wet signature of the voter who's signing on their table. And that was a bit of a surprise to me. I asked Julie why Julie's the elections director down there, and her hypothesis is that when voters sign to register to vote, oftentimes that's at the Department of Motor Vehicles, and you're signing on an electronic pad. So if it's electronic to electronic, it's more apples to apples, and that's why it could be a slightly higher accuracy rate than even the wet signature. And since that 2019 pilot, about 20% of the states in the country have used this tool for electronic return and on-screen signature. And say about almost 1 million voters have actually done this. And it's a pretty consistent pattern that it does continue to match up and certainly is at least as secure or at least as accurate as the wet signature. And that means that a voter who's in a foxhole, if they're in a submarine, we've had voters actually have one up in the space station, we've had voters in Antarctica and Africa, all around the country, or all around the world. have been able to do this, and they haven't had to go and find a printer and find a scanner. So it's really dramatically increased voter turnout. So what we do is we capture that on-screen signature, and all we're really doing is taking that signature and overlaying it onto whatever form, whatever required document that you have in Anchorage for your vote by mail voters. So as you can see here, we just overlay that signature. So you still have the signature, you still have the form. This document that you're looking at here, it's not on my laptop. That's being secured in that federally approved cloud infrastructure, the same cloud environment that, as you mentioned, Department of Homeland Security and the National Security Agencies, CIA. I'm not exactly sure what the National Security uses their portal for, but whether it's the list of spies or the nuclear codes or whatever it is that the NSA secures, it's got to be pretty secure. And that's why we partner with AWS on this. So we got the signature page, and then we can go and review the ballot itself. And what's about this is that we're just overlaying the voter selections on top of the same ballot that everybody else uses. If you get a paper ballot mailed to you. So it's the same looking ballot. And what's nice about that is that when the ballot gets submitted back to the elections office, William and his team can just print off that ballot directly and then tabulate it on the tabulation system. So the voter will go ahead and confirm that their ballot looks good, their signature looks good, and then you hit submit. And at this point, by hitting submit, it's similar to DocuSign, right? The voter can always print off the document if they want to, or they can choose to electronically return the ballot. And then once they do, the elections office will be notified that there's a new ballot package ready to be downloaded. And the first thing they would do is review the signature, just like they do today. And then the second thing is if the signatures match, they would go ahead and print off the ballot and then process that just like they would every other vote by mail ballot. So with that, William, I just wanted to be sensitive to your time and to the council and the team's time here today. But I'd be happy to answer any questions and talk about security or any other related questions that anybody might have.
Did you want to add?
No, I think Brian has said everything that needs to be said. Well, I guess I would just want to say, if this is something that we were to do, it would integrate nicely with all of our current systems, as Brian mentioned. We could print off the ballots on ballot stock and process them like we do any other ballot. So we would still make up that envelope for the voter with their unique barcode and everything and run it through the sorter after the signature's been verified. So, and I guess on that signature piece, Brian did mention that a lot of the signatures, especially from the DMV, are electronic, and that's what we are seeing when we get our signatures from the state of Alaska. They are coming in as electronic, so this could also bring down the rate of cures that we have to make up.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'll go ahead and start, and then if there are other members who have questions. So I guess first question for me, so early on in the process, you had talked about entering a PIN number. Where do voters get that PIN number from?
So that would come from the elections office. There's a random generated PIN capability. So when the team sends out the link, they'd also get that PIN number.
Okay, got it. And then a second question, then I'll go down the queue. Just out of curiosity, do any of the current jurisdictions who use Democracy Live, do any of them have a ranked choice voting system, and does your Democracy Live platform accommodate that?
We do. In fact, I think we're going live a couple weeks with San Francisco is one, Vermont. I think they just added it. We've got about 3 or 4 states, no, 2 or 3 states, but probably 20 jurisdictions overall that have a rate choice requirement.
Great. I'll move on to Member Johnson.
Yeah, thanks. I have a couple questions. Have there been instances, allegations of fraud relating to people who have used your services?
You say allegations of fraud or fraud?
Well, ultimately both.
Yeah, of course. Just as we've seen, unfortunately, there's a tremendous amount of doubt, distrust in elections, and just go on, social media at any point, and then you'll see people that are antagonistic toward the integrity of elections. So yes, people are always concerned about elections, especially now. The reality is that we've been deploying this now for 15 years. 20 million voters have had access to it. What you see on the screen here, and maybe William, can you confirm that you can see the security screen I'm sharing?
Yes, it's up there.
Okay. So this portal is the most reviewed and tested technology in U.S. elections, period. We've all heard of Dominion. We've all heard of the tabulation companies that are out there, and there's of course things like voter registration and election act reporting. But this particular portal that I just showed you today is significantly more reviewed and tested than any other technology. And the reason why I say that is, first, we have a larger footprint than any other provider. We're in 34 states. But all when you see on these bullets in front of you here, we have ongoing testing through Homeland Security. That's a constant testing program that DHS has put together. We've been through an agency called CISA for a full security and vulnerability test. But perhaps most importantly, we have, we've all heard about penetration testing, and you should do a penetration test. And some systems have, once a year, maybe twice a year. We have ongoing penetration tests.
Okay, so there are no verified.
So we had,
no verified incidents of fraud related to people.
No.
Okay.
Now, in fact, we can share with you a report that this. So we've got over 800 individual cybersecurity researchers this year alone that have tested the system, over 1,200 hours, and we can share this with you with zero vulnerability incidents or reports.
Okay, thanks. And I apologize, I'm not better prepared for this presentation. I wish I had a chance to do more research ahead of time, but I did just kind of start going through this quickly, kind of looked you guys up, and one of the first things that came up was this study from 2020 from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who I think is fairly high regarded in technological matters. And I'm guessing you've probably seen this, but it's pretty disconcerting. I mean, just to read one or two lines from their conclusions, they say online ballot return, and this is specifically relating to, I believe, your service. Online ballot return, however, represents a severe danger to election integrity and voter privacy. At worst, attackers could change election outcomes without detection. Even if there was no attack, officials would have no way to prove that the results were accurate. Is this study outdated? Was MIT flawed in their methodology? Can you address those concerns?
So that wasn't MIT. It was a student from MIT who's since graduated and is working over at Google now. But it wasn't an official MIT report. That essentially what they're saying in that report, if you look through it, and we spoke with both the individual who drafted that report. Their real conclusion is that that websites, just in general, websites can be compromised, and nobody's saying that anything is 100%, right? What we're trying to do is be more secure than all the other options. I'm down here in Washington State, and I put my ballot in a mailbox. And Milton, the mailman, picks up my mail, and he transmits the ballot to the elections office. And we hope that he does that securely. There's some level of risk in everything we do within the elections world. What we're trying to do through what we're sharing with you on the screen here is to raise the level of security, raise the level of testing and reviews to make sure that it's the highest, most secure system possible. What they're suggesting, or the student was suggesting, is don't do it at all. Just everybody should vote at a polling place on paper. Like, they don't want to do any type of electronic at all. So, coming from that world of just vote on paper at a polling place, that's fine, but that's not the real world. So in the real world, where you do have to have the ability to transmit ballots to voters that can't vote on paper because of geography or disabilities or other reasons, or if they're already doing it anyway, but using outdated transmission tools like email attachments, we need to find the best way of making sure that all voters are enfranchised. So they don't really live in the real world. They live in the academic, student realm where he was doing a paper. And so it was a student paper saying, hey, you should just vote on paper. It's not true in terms of what they were able to do. As I mentioned, we've been deploying this now for 15 years. We've never had one compromise. They were not able to compromise it. But we do have, as we all saw in 2020, right? There's a lot of antagonists that are out there. It's just the world that we live in, unfortunately, in the elections community right now.
Okay, thanks for that response. And then one other quick question, and I'll get out of queue for now. So for the signature matching, I get that if I have access to a stylus, I can make something that looks pretty close to my signature. What about for people who don't have access to a stylus? And I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been employed with the military, but I can imagine a lot of people are using pretty basic computers to use this. I mean, using a mouse would be pretty hard. Have you guys run into instances where people don't have access to a stylus, and then what you can do to try and match the signatures or manage verification in those circumstances?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is just one option, and it's voluntary. So voters, if they choose, and I don't want to speak for how William satisfies it today, but this is just one option. If they want the ballot mailed to them, if they want it emailed, I'm sure that could possibly still be an option. This is just an option. What we have seen is even with, and this surprises us as well. Based on the data that we're seeing, and we've been doing this, as I mentioned, for nearly 1 million voters have used that on-screen signature. When you do a mouse, it does not have the same level of accuracy, but from what we've been told, it is accurate enough. I mean, you do have a little bit higher rejection rate than you would if you're just doing with a stylus or a finger on a touchscreen. But the states are still doing it, and they're still using it. Even with a mouse signature, they're still getting approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And I guess segueing, that was a great segue to my question. So, what is the cure process if using this electronic voting method and your signature doesn't match? What does that look like?
Yes, absolutely. So it would be the same curing process that we currently have for when signatures don't match. So if we receive this back, the voter would receive a letter in the mail, which would likely be hard for individuals who are overseas. But if they provide us with an email or a number, we can also reach them that way. And over this past couple elections, that's what we've done. We are required by code to send a physical letter, but then we have followed up with emails and calls. And essentially, what they would do is they could fill out the letter and send it back to us, providing the information as requested, or they can come in person, which would be different from this situation. They could email us their information if needed, or they can use text to cure that we implemented last election. That way they can just take a picture of their ID, do a couple other prompts, and then cure that way. So.
Great, thank you. And that's actually a perfect segue to my last question around texting. Is there, so I forget what the system is called, but texting to know that your ballot has been received, all of those steps in the process, will that also fit with electronic voting in this platform?
Yes, I do believe so. It's a conversation that we'll still have to have with ballot tracks, but there are people who are already doing vote by email and vote by fax are getting those messages because basically what happens is they may not get Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, but they may not get the text saying that your ballot has been mailed because they're not getting a mailed ballot. But they would be getting the text indicating that we've received their ballot because that's been run through the sorter. They would be getting the text saying that, hey, there's an issue with your ballot or your ballot has been canceled. And we're even looking into an option in this coming election to add another text for those ballots that need to be cured. Like, just a reminder, you still need to cure this. So.
Elizabeth Burns, Deputy Election Administrator. So we don't cancel the ballots, but yes, they would get similar messages that the rest of the voters would. It would just be a slightly different timeline, but they would still get notified.
Great. Any other questions, comments on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, and maybe this was in the presentation, so apologies if I just missed it. How do you ensure that we obviously want to verify that the voter is who they say they are, but then the results of their ballot, should be anonymous. What's the firewall between the data that tracks who the people are, but separates that from what they ultimately what we receive on the ballot for their vote?
Correct. So you have the system itself is fully encrypted through the entire process. So between the ballot access, the ballot marking, the ballot submission, all the way through the entire process, you have full encryption of the balloting experience. At no point does Democracy Live or anybody through the process know how the voter voted due to that deep level of encryption through the entire process. When the voter accesses the ballot, they're actually marking it directly on their own device. And then once they've marked it, then it's going to be secured in that federally approved, that AWS cloud environment. And then with that, it's what they call object lock. And through object lock, which is this tool that the CIA uses to kind of secure the document, it's immutable, it can't be modified or compromised in any way. And that's all been reviewed and tested at the highest levels of the security apparatus. And that's why the FBI and other agencies use them, because it's met all the different federal security requirements to ensure that document integrity is maintained all the way through the process. And it gets a lot deeper, and I can easily share with you the levels of security that we go through, and in close partnership with AWS, why it is that document that once it's submitted, it's immutably stored in that object lock environment.
Okay, thanks. And I guess I'm not the most tech savvy here, so I'm not familiar with the terms of the procedures, but it does sound like somewhere, even though it is highly, highly encrypted, there is a database that shows who voted for whom and all these ballots that they've casted over the years. Am I correct? Even though it's pretty well locked up, that information does exist and is linked?
Not tied to the voter in any way. It's actually severed. So once the ballot is actually delivered to the voter itself, so there's kind of a gateway, right, to access your ballot, and that's their first, last, date of birth, PIN number. But once they access the ballot, we have no way of knowing how that voter voted. And once it's submitted into the portal environment, it's immediately locked and stored. But there's no connection between the voter and how they voted. Their ballot style, there is a connection. So, meaning the ballot that they're required to have, right? So every ballot's a little bit different, not every ballot, but some voters might have a different city council, they might have a different school board. So the blank ballot is associated to the voter, but once they mark that ballot, we have no association to the voter and that ballot.
Okay, thank you. That's reassuring.
Great. Member Bradley.
Thanks. Just briefly. So as I understand it, it was the question for the election administrator. So as I understand it, the goal is to increase voter turnout, particularly for folks who are stationed overseas or otherwise not in the municipality. So would this technology potentially be available to everyone, or is it truly just, for example, military members that you're mailing out ballots to?
Yes, so those are our target audiences for this because we do want to increase those numbers. I can't, speak to what happens when a ballot gets mailed overseas. I can't speak to whether it gets stopped at the post office or what type of screenings it has to go through to get to those military individuals. So I think this will help increase that. It can be used for other voters within the municipality as well. Right now, any voter can use a vote by email if they want, or a vote by fax. I think we have one family who does vote by fax still. So this option could be used in that situation. It could also be used in situations where there's a natural disaster. As you all are probably aware, there was that avalanche that occurred in Eagle River during an election, where ballots could not be transmitted back and forth. So this could be used in a situation like that to ensure that those voters who are affected by a certain natural disaster can still vote.
Thanks. And then can you briefly also remind us basically what is the return rate currently for those ballots? You said it earlier in the meeting.
Yes, so for the ballots that are mailed out for military and overseas, for the regular election, we mailed out 944 ballots and only received 116 back. And then for the runoff, we mailed out 965 ballots and only received 90 back. That doesn't mean we're not still receiving them now, because ballots still trickle in. But I think, by having this as an option for voters would be very beneficial in increasing those numbers.
Yeah, thanks. Just briefly comment. Obviously, we need to do vetting of this technology or any technology that we adopt, but I think we should also stay focused on the goal, which is to make sure that everybody can vote and will vote, and if they choose to, and particularly if we are making it easier for military members to vote while they are deployed, I think that is a good goal. It's not the only goal, but I think we should always just stay focused on what our goals are as we're vetting these technologies. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking of the goal, is the elections team looking for anything from this committee, or what are the sort of the next steps forward?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the first steps is to bring this to the committee. We would like to ideally get the committee's approval eventually for this technology, and then maybe even the entire assembly's approval, just because this is a newer program and it's something different. There will be some slight code changes that need to be made, and I say slight because what I mean is essentially we'll have to put a term in code along with our vote by email and vote by fax options to allow for this. And we may have to change the facsimile code around a little bit because, again, with these ballots, we don't have to facsimile them because we can print them on one of our on-demand ballot printers, essentially, and then run them through like any other ballot. So like the vote by mail ballots and the current ballots that we receive from our ADA ICX compliant machines.
Thanks. Might be messing up the timeline in my head. Are these code changes going to be wrapped into the annual elections code changes, or is it going to be separate?
Yes, so those will be likely wrapped into what I'm currently working on.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts? I think for my part as the chair, I would like members to get a little time for them to mull over this before we as a committee give a specific recommendation, but you can probably look to that perhaps at our September meeting for us to come back to this topic and possibly make a recommendation at that point. All right, not seeing any other thoughts. We are pretty much out of time, and I don't want to rush our final discussion on the committee vision and goals. So what I will likely do is just put that particular topic on our September meeting so that we can have a more robust discussion, and hopefully also then Vice Chair Constant and then Member Bronco will be able to join us. So with that, I will move us on to unfinished business. I don't have any, and then audience participation. I don't see any members of the public in person? Are there any members of the public on the phone who might want to participate?
Hi, Felix. I just wanted to, this is Erica Barry with the Office of the Opportunity. I didn't want to interrupt your introduction, but I just wanted to briefly introduce myself. Like I said, I'm Erica Barry, and that was a great presentation, and I appreciate the invite to this committee meeting. I'm with the Office of Equal Opportunity, and we run the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, as well as are responsible for federal compliance under Title VI. And so I just want to say that I'm here. Thank you for the invite, and I look forward to working with the committee and the next meeting.
Great, thank you so much. Sorry that we missed you during the introduction of the departments. Okay, I think with that, I'll thank everyone for their participation and for the presentation today, and I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting.